Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. This is update number 9 of my HO scale layout down here in my new space in the basement. Most of the work I've been doing for this update has been in the staging area. It takes a lot of time to put this together for many reasons. First of all, in my particular layout, I had to build a lot of bench work around it. As you know, the way I planned it was just by figuring out the curvature of the spline on top and then adding the staging loop and then adding the helix that's going to go on top. So, when I put all this together, it was kind of like building from the inside out. And the reason I did that was because I wanted a lot of space inside. So I have a full circle inside that I can get in there and work on anything. Plus I have a gap on top that allows me to access, the helix and whatever's on top of that. So obviously when I make the mountain around the helix won't be seen, but I'll be able to work from the inside out for plaster work or whatever I'm doing there. So the biggest thing, which I think was the biggest accomplishment, was to get the bench work figured out. So I love how I designed this. I basically created all these support legs with these kind of like 45-degree angle weight distribution kind of legs. So all the weight from the top down is pushing down, obviously, on that. And everything is kicking out. The force is going outward because you have the spline also attached to this, so it's creating the weight here. Same thing with the deck for the staging, so it's all pushing that way. That's why I decided to put the legs out. But I did it in a way where they're not out too far. So as you're walking through here with you're following your train, you're not kicking the support legs. Plus, this is going to be extended out to about here for scenery, so it will not be in the way of that at all. And you'll be able to get around there without tripping. So let's get back to the staging. So the staging, basically, I cut the wood in a way. I didn't make it like a perfect circle, although it looks pretty even. I got pretty close. So what I did is I gauged it because this isn't a perfect circle. I gauged it from that, and I wanted to make sure it was inside this. So it was really hard to do just by calculating a specific thing. The only thing I calculated was that the inside, I didn't want to make it any tighter than 28 inches for the radius. So at no point is this curve ever tighter than 28. So once I had that figured out, I was able to cut the wood, giving myself a little bit of clearance there. The outside, I kind of goofed up over here a little bit. I went a little too straight, so there's like a flap, but still, it's fine. And I am going to make a guard that goes around the whole thing, just to make sure that I don't have any turns flying off the side there. So I made the inside loop, like I said, no more or no less than 28 inches. And then from there, I kind of echoed everything out. The outside loop is very comfortable. It's the smallest part of the curve, I think, is like 36. And it goes out to like 40 or 41 in some points. But as you can see, they're very evenly distributed. And for the most part, it's all, 2-inch intervals. So I already tested long cars and made sure that there was no collisions on the curves, and I tested every angle, and it seems to be fine. So the next thing would be to test the locomotives to see if they run. But I did solder all the joints, and I did it on the inside and the outside just to make sure that they were super stiff. And then I went in with a file and made sure I didn't have anything sticking out. So all the joints are super smooth. I cleaned them up, and I'm using this washer and screw method to keep the tracks down, as you can see, especially where there's a joint, because I don't want these to kink out, like I see in some layouts where they, even though these are beautiful tracks, microengineering, code 83, they tend to want to kick out on the joints. So I don't think they're going anywhere. These things, this is super stiff the way it's done. The method I stole from, or borrowed from Jeff Johnston. I saw his Helix construction, and I thought this was a great way to secure track, especially when you're going right to plywood, because not only is it super stable, but it also allows you to move it if you need to by loosening it up a little bit and move it. And in fact, I had to move a few when I was trying to figure out all this stuff. So that worked out nicely. I went about a foot apart from each other, but I might add a few more in the middle, because sometimes, I mean, right here it's all good, but sometimes it's a little bit of a lift. Actually, this is all good right now. So I might not have to do anything. So yeah, so all this is complete. And now what I did is I created the bridges over to the 2x8 platforms that I made for staging down here. So obviously, the tracks are not going to take up all that space. So the 4 tracks are just going to basically go in there, and then I want them to kick out a little bit toward the edge. This way, when I make the turn, it doesn't have to be super tight under there. I did the same thing on the other side for the same reason. So let me just take it to the other side. So as you can see, I still have to finish this 4th track here, but everything else is in place. I ran out of washers, so I have to buy more tomorrow. That's why I stopped. So I made this second bridge here, and here's the other 2x8 piece of plywood. So obviously when the tracks come in, it's the same thing, except on this side it really has to hug. I want them to hug the wall back there, so that when I make this turn back there, it comes in, at a nice angle. The problem with all this is that, it's supposed to be 4 tracks in, 4 tracks out. So the 4 tracks that are going this way, you have plenty of room to go nice and wide into that section over there. But when you come around again, remember that there's 4 tracks already here. So I gotta make sure I can squeeze them in when I make this turn. If I have to cheat a little bit, what I might do is take out part of the 2x4, cross brace it somehow, and then just cheat 1 or 2 tracks on the other side, since those are going to go wide anyway, and then come around and work it out that way. But I think I'll be fine, just using this side of the platform. The only thing I'm trying to figure out, I don't even know if I will do anything with the extra space that I have, because like I said, when the tracks go out this way, there's going to be all kinds of available space here. So what I might do, it's just a thought, is create some sidings here, like stub end kind of things, so that I can add cars. If I want to stage different cars, I can just add them manually and then push them back and have the train just latch on and keep going. The other thing is I was trying to avoid any kind of turnouts once you get past the initial turnouts, which will be back here. I'm going to have obviously 4 turnouts this way and 4 turnouts that way, and it'll act as a runaround or a reverse loop before it goes back up into the layout. And speaking of that, originally I had another section of benchwork here that I was going to use, but because I brought it down, it was too tight. Because I brought it down, what I did is I eliminated this section. But now I have to make sure that I can get the homosode spline down. I have to keep going downward at a 2% to get down to this level. So what I'm going to do is, it's single track over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start opening up by putting a number 8 turnout right there. And then as it goes into double track, I'm still kind of dipping. And then I can get 2 tracks to turn comfortably before I latch on here. where I start opening up to the 4 tracks on each side. But I didn't want to, I mean, I might be able to, but I didn't want to start opening up to 4 tracks here, because, you know, getting 4 tracks to connect here is going to be, I think, a lot more difficult. I don't even think it's going to be possible. So 2 tracks turning and dropping at the same time, I think that's okay. And like I said in past videos, you know, I think I'll have enough, even after the turnouts completely clear. So I'm assuming it's from like here, all the way around the loop, and all the way back before you hit the turnouts again. I think that's a decent length for a train to be stored. Now, the only thing I'm a little bit upset about is that I was only able to get 4 tracks in. So 1 track has to be available so I can run the train around and go back up if I'm just doing continuous running. So if that's the case, I guess what I'll do is, like if I'm not doing a session, I'm just kind of just running trains by myself, I'll leave one of the trains up there in the main yard or in a siding or something, so I'll have that track available. Because I would rather store 4 trains here, 4 full trains here, so I can have them available to you know, when I have a session. Not that I'm looking to make some like massive session happening down here in my basement, but you know, there's a decent amount of track that I'm going to have when I'm done, where I can have a nice 4 train, you know, run coming out of the staging yard. I still haven't decided if I'm going to have an upper staging yard once I get to the 3rd level, because I do have room either here or back there to make a yard, but obviously it won't be as big as this thing. But then again, the other thought was, well, if I have this much trackage, I can have a train, one train in front of the other, waiting. So it could be, let's say, I don't know, like a 20-car train, and then there might be another 20-car train or something like that. Obviously, once they get longer than that, I don't think I'll have room, you know, especially if I'm running 2 or 3 locomotives. So, you know, I'll see how that pans out. All I know is that I'm trying to maximize the space here, and that seems to be the only way I could do this with the clearance issues and everything else that comes along with planning. So we'll go with that. But yeah, things are coming along nicely. Once I finish the staging yard, then I think I'll be able to, like, you know, take a mental break, because I'm freaking out about making sure that all of this works before I start stacking on top. Because once I start building on top of this, it's going to be a real pain to get back there if I need to make like major modifications. So I'm going to just make sure that all of that is solid, including the turnouts, and making sure that I have all the frogs juiced up and all that stuff. I am using Pico Electro turnouts, which I love, because they already come cut for DCC with the gaps right here, and they have the wire for the frog already there. So all you got to do is basically drill it in. The only thing you have to do is solder the cross wires here. So from here to here, and then another one from here to here, a little piece of wire, so that the tracks have power all the way around. But that's basically it. So that's my update. While I'm doing all this, I did make some progress on the helix, but that'll be for another video. We'll get back to that. But I did want to make sure that I had at least the platform in place, all solid, so that I knew how all that was going to come together. Now I feel like this is the shape that's going to be for the future. So that's all. All right. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you on the next one.